What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another FPL video on the channel. And in today's one, we're going to be looking at some of the best players you should consider buying for game week 3. And of course, guys, this is just my humble opinion, so you don't have to listen to what I say at all. But without further ado, let's waste no more time and let's get straight into it. So the first player that I do recommend you guys buy for game week 3 is actually Morgan Rogers. He's a really good cheap option in my opinion at just the price of 5 million. And I know, guys, he hasn't scored or assisted in the first 2 games, but I really do believe the goals will come and the assists will come. First things first, I do want to point out, I love what I've seen so far from Morgan Rogers on the eye test. I mean, he was good against West Ham, but my word, what a performance he showed against Arsenal in game week 2. He was running rings around Declan Rice and Thomas Partey. He really should have walked away from that Arsenal game with an assist. He created a really good chance for Ollie Watkins, and on another day, Ollie Watkins probably does put the ball in the back of the net, and on another day, Morgan Rogers does walk away with an assist. But for me, I really do like what I've seen on the eye test from Morgan Rogers. If you guys don't know this already, I love football, I love watching football, and I love the eye test, especially when talking about FPL. Of course, the underlying data is also a factor, you know, to decide whether you want to go with a player. But for me, nothing beats the eye test. Now, some of you guys may look at the underlying data, for example, and see his expected goals per 90 and his expected assists per 90 is relatively low. But I do believe that will increase as time goes on. Another thing I want to point out is the fixtures, guys. The fixtures for Aston Villa are really good. I've said it in one of my previous videos. I actually think the next 4 fixtures for Aston Villa are some of the best fixtures any team can get in the Premier League at the moment. Leicester away in game week 3, Everton at home in game week 4, Wolves at home in game week 5, sorry, and then in game week 6, Ipswich away. Those 4 fixtures are absolutely incredible, and I wouldn't be surprised if Morgan Rogers does rack up some goals and assists in those games, because like I said, he's shown that he's a quality player. And also, another thing that I really do love about Morgan Rogers, guys, is that he's played 90 minutes in the last 2 games, so that's really good. We know he's going to get 90 minutes. He's playing in that number 10 position. He's playing in that number 10 role right behind the striker, getting 90 minutes with great fixtures. Guys, I think Morgan Rogers at the price of just 5 million could be an absolute steal. He's someone that I'm considering for my own team, and yeah, I just think he provides such good value. And also at the time of recording, I guess you could say he's pretty much a differential, because at the time of recording, he has only got 11.3% ownership. So yeah, I really do like Morgan Rogers as an option. I think he could be a great pick for your FPL teams. I also do think Leon Bailey and Ollie Watkins are fantastic options for your FPL teams, and I think the Villa assets in general should definitely be a priority of players to transfer in for game week 3, given how good their fixtures are. I just think that they've got such a high ceiling and a high points potential in the next 4 game weeks especially. But realistically, Aston Villa's fixtures are actually good all the way up until game week 9. So I just think Aston Villa assets are a good long-term hold. So that's why I definitely would be targeting these 3 players. But obviously my favorite is probably Morgan Rogers, given how cheap he is and given the fact that he's actually getting 90 minutes. Now, some people that actually own Ollie Watkins are transferring him out. But if I was an owner of Ollie Watkins, I would be keeping him. I know he's getting subbed off relatively early, around 60 minutes in, but that's because he had sort of a lack of pre-season. I generally believe after the international break, his fitness will be up to scratch and he'll be much sharper, and I think he'll get good minutes, and I think he returns. Honestly, I do think he returns in the next few game weeks. I think, like I said, the fixtures are really good, and I cannot stress that enough. We know how good Ollie Watkins is as a player. Yes, I know he's got off to a slow start to the season, but if you are someone that owns Ollie Watkins, I genuinely would just be patient. Be patient with it, because I know the goals and assists will come. I think we all know Ollie Watkins is a really good striker, and he showed that last season, and he showed that in previous seasons throughout the Premier League, alright? He's, technically speaking, he is a Premier League proven striker, so we know he's got goals and assists in him, and I think they come. I really do think they come in the next few game weeks. So if I was an Ollie Watkins owner, or if you're watching this and you are an Ollie Watkins owner, I definitely would be holding on to Ollie Watkins. But yeah, for me, Villa players are absolutely just at the top of my list in terms of players to transfer in for game week 3. So yeah, I would definitely be considering them. So next up, at the price of 7.6 million, we've got Diogo Jota, and guys, I think he's a fantastic option. He's someone that's in my own personal team, and so far he's been absolutely amazing. All right, 2 games he's got in the first 2 game weeks, he's got 1 goal and 1 assist, and I think that's absolutely fantastic. The underlying data for Jota is really good, but also on the eye test we can actually see on the pitch he's getting really high quality chances, and that is is also backed up by the underlying data. As you guys can see, his XG per 90 is 0.94, which is really high, and just absolutely fantastic. He was so unlucky to not actually walk away with 1 goal at least against Brentford. He really should have walked away from that game with 1 goal and 1 assist, but unfortunately he only just got the 1 assist. But yeah, really unlucky not to walk away with a goal against Brentford. And I just think for as long as Jota starts, guys, he's a great option. I was really banging on about Diogo Jota in pre-season, because what I noticed over the Premier League years with Diogo Jota is, although yes, I know he's injury prone and typically he doesn't get to play a lot of games throughout the Premier League season, when he is fit and ready to go, he's an absolutely quality finisher and a quality player overall. He gets goals, he gets assists, and that's why I do like Jota. He's really efficient. So me knowing that Jota was going to start the first few games, I just knew I had to put him in, and I'm going to recommend him to you guys now. I really think you should be going for Diogo Jota, because I think, you know, he's going to be starting the next few games, because at the end of the day, Liverpool have been playing really well with Jota in that number 9 role, and Jota himself has been looking really sharp and playing and putting in some good performances for Liverpool. So I do think he will continue to start games, and for as long as Jota continues to start games, he remains a fantastic option, because like I said, guys, he's so deadly in front of goal, and he is just really efficient, and usually he does get a lot of points when he does start games. Now, I know Diogo Jota has been getting subbed off relatively early, I guess you could say. I mean, he did play 78 minutes in game week 1 against Ipswich away. He played 78 minutes, but then in game week 2 against Brentford at home, he did only play 71 minutes. So you might look at Jota and think, I don't really want to put Jota in because he's not going to get you those 90-minute performances, and I do get that, but guys, Jota is just good enough that he can return in 70 to 75 minutes. That is actually enough minutes for Jota to get sort of a goal or 2. Honestly, guys, he's that good, and Liverpool do create chances. So for me, I wouldn't really worry about Jota not getting 90 minutes. I don't think that's enough of a reason to not put him in your team. I actually think he's good enough where he's so good that him only playing 70 to 75 minutes is actually good enough. So I think, yeah, Jota's a great option. And guys, the fixtures for Liverpool are really good. Of course, it's in game week 3. I know it's Man United away from home, but it's more of a long-term pick with Jota. After that, it's Nottingham Forest at home. Game week 5 is Bournemouth at home, and then game week 6 is Wolves away. And to be honest with you guys, that Manchester United away game, you could argue that's quite a good fixture for Liverpool and quite a good fixture for the Liverpool attackers. I mean, over the years, Liverpool have absolutely destroyed Manchester United. So I wouldn't be surprised if Diogo Jota did get a goal or 2 against Manchester United. I really wouldn't be surprised. So yeah, I think Jota's a good option. And like I said, the long-term fixtures are really good. So yeah, Diogo Jota is definitely one you should consider, in my opinion. So I just wanted to make a quick comparison between Diogo Jota and Mohamed Salah, because in pre-season there was sort of a big debate as to whether Diogo Jota was good enough to actually cover Mohamed Salah. And I'm not gonna lie, guys, I actually think so far he's done a pretty good job at doing that. I think he's actually managed to keep in range with Mohamed Salah, which is really good. As you guys can see, so far, in the first 2 games, Jota's averaged 7 points per match compared to Mohamed Salah's 12 points per match. So as you can see, there's not that much of a difference there, considering, you know, the price difference between the two. Also, Diogo Jota has managed to score 1 goal and get 1 assist in the first 2 games, compared to Mohamed Salah's 2 goals and 1 assist. So I really do like Diogo Jota, because as you can see, he's managing to sort of keep up within sort of touching distance with Mohamed Salah. Of course, Mohamed Salah is doing better, and that's as expected, because, you know, he gets more minutes than Diogo Jota as well. He's on penalties and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, Jota's doing really well to keep in range with Mohamed Salah, and the underlying data as well for Diogo Jota is fantastic. And when you compare it to Mohamed Salah, it's arguably better than Mohamed Salah in terms of per 90 stats. So 0.94 expected goals per 90 for Diogo Jota, compared to Mohamed Salah's 0.63 expected goals per 90. So you can see there that in terms of expected goals, Diogo Jota is actually doing better than Mohamed Salah, but where Salah beats him is on the expected assists. His is much higher than the likes of Diogo Jota. As you guys can see, there is 0.21 expected assists per 90 for Mohamed Salah, and 0.06 expected assists for Diogo Jota. But all in all, it's really close between the two. And of course, if you are going to captain Mohamed Salah, then of course, I guess that's where sort of the pricing comes into play, and that's where I guess Mohamed Salah is clearly the better option, because Mohamed Salah has shown in the first 2 games that he's a great captaincy option. But I think the point I'm trying to make is here that Diogo Jota isn't too far off Salah, and just at the price of 7.6 million, I think it's absolutely fantastic that he's managing to sort of keep up in touch and distance with an asset that costs 12.5 million. So yeah, I think Diogo Jota is a really great option, and I would definitely consider buying him for game week 3. So next up, we do have Noni Madueke, and at the time of recording, guys, he's only 6.4% owned, and I think he could be a fantastic differential. Now, you guys might be looking at me right now and be thinking that I'm pretty much an idiot for suggesting this player, but guys, hear me out. I actually think he could be a really good option. Of course, he just scored a hat-trick against Wolves, 20 points in game week 2, absolutely fantastic. But the reason why I think Madueke could be a good differential is because the doubts that people had about Madueke was him starting games. But now that he scored a hat-trick, surely that has made him a confirmed starter for at least the next 2 to 3 games. Surely, guys. There's no way a player gets benched after scoring a hat-trick. Absolutely no chance. So with that in mind, with sort of the idea of Madueke starting the next 3 to 4 games, in my opinion, which I will think will happen, I think Madueke is a great pick because the fixtures for Chelsea are really good. In game week 3 is Palace at home, in game week 4 is Bournemouth away, in game week 5 is West Ham away, and then in game week 6 is Brighton at home. I actually do think he starts against Palace, who have been pretty weak defensively, and then I do think he starts against Bournemouth as well. And if he does continue to play well in those 2 games, you'd assume he does start in game week 5 and 6. So yes, it's a bit of a gamble because we know that Chelsea have a lot of players in their squad. They've got so much squad depth and he could be dropped at any moment in time, but surely he's going to start against Palace. He's just scored 3 goals, and then even if he does play bad, you probably won't bench him in game week 4. It's just too soon to bench a player who's on form and playing well. So yeah, I just don't think I really do think he's going to be a starter for the next few games. And also another thing I want to point out is that form shouldn't be ignored. Form should not be ignored. This player is clearly on form at the moment. He also had a good pre-season. I do want to make that very clear. He had a good pre-season. He was scoring goals in pre-season. He also scored in the Europa Conference League game that Chelsea had last week as well. And then he's going to score a hat-trick in his first Premier League start this season. I think Madueke is a player in form. And I think form is a factor that should be considered when choosing players. And that's why I'm going to recommend Madueke. I think the psychological impact that scoring a hat-trick would have on Madueke is really good. He's going to feel confident, he's going to feel good about himself, and I think that will in turn help with FPL returns. I think it will increase the chances of Madueke getting goals and assists. And you guys might be looking at me thinking I'm waffling here, but honestly guys, I think Madueke could be a good differential. I really do. So next up, we've got Smith-Rowe, and he's recently just got a price rise and is now costing 5.6 million, and I can kind of understand why. I really do think Smith-Rowe is a good cheap option to have, and the upcoming fixtures are really good for Fulham. Of course, in game week 3 is Ipswich away, then in game week 4 West Ham at home, and then Newcastle at home in game week 5, who are looking pretty poor defensively, if I'm being honest. And I wanted to quickly show you guys this. So far in the first 2 games, Newcastle have actually proved to be one of the worst defensive teams in the league at the moment. As you guys can see here by this graphic, in terms of expecting goals conceded, only Ipswich have been a worse team. All right, as you guys can see here, Newcastle are sitting in 2nd place in terms of expected goals conceded. So right now, Newcastle weren't looking too good defensively, and I know they did get a red card in the first game, and that is probably, you know, sort of swinging the data a little bit. But even against Bournemouth, they gave up a lot of chances, so I think that's also a good fixture. I know some people may look at Newcastle and think, oh, that's quite a tough game, but at home to Newcastle at the moment, it's looking like it could be a good fixture for attackers to get goals in. So yeah, I think that fixture is really good for Smith-Rowe. And then after that, in game week 6, it's Nottingham Forest away. I really do think Smith-Rowe is a good option. He's already scored 1 goal already, and I wouldn't be surprised if he gets some more goals in the upcoming fixtures. Now, one thing I do want to point out, guys, is that I wouldn't be expecting 90-minute games from Smith-Rowe. We've seen it so far at the start of this season. He typically does get subbed off around 60 to 70 minutes. 60 to 68 minutes, I say, is the time where he gets subbed off. For example, in game week 1 against Manchester United, Smith-Rowe did get subbed off in the 63rd minute, all right? And then in game week 2, he got subbed off in the 68th minute. So what I think is happening at the moment is that Smith-Rowe is just sort of building up his fitness. So what I will say is, if you are looking to buy Smith-Rowe, again, don't expect 90-minute performances because he probably won't get them. He probably doesn't even get more than 70 minutes. Maybe after the international break, we could see more 80-minute performances. But as for now, I wouldn't expect those 90-minute performances at all. So I would just say bear that in mind, guys, if you are going to buy this asset. He probably isn't going to get 90 minutes. That's probably the only downside of this player. However, overall, I do think he's a fantastic option given the good fixtures that Fulham do have. So yeah, I would definitely be looking to get Emil Smith-Rowe in for game week 3 and onwards. So next up, we do have Kevin De Bruyne, and at the time of recording, guys, he is currently only 11% owned, and I think he could prove to be a good differential in the next few game weeks. I really do. Of course, he managed to get 1 goal and 1 assist in the last game against Ipswich, but over the first 2 games, the underlying data for Kevin De Bruyne is really strong, and I really do think he could do well with given the fact that Manchester City do have some good fixtures coming up. In game week 3, it's West Ham away, and I'm going to be honest, West Ham have looked pretty poor defensively over the first 2 games, and then it's Brentford at home in game week 4, who again, they've looked pretty poor defensively as well. I wouldn't be surprised if Manchester City do score 3+ goals in both of those games against West Ham and Brentford at home. I wouldn't be surprised at all. And if Man City are going to score goals, you'd expect De Bruyne to sort of be getting involved in the goals and assists, because we know how good, we know how class Kevin De Bruyne is. All right, a fantastic player. Now, some of you may argue that he's not a good pick because in game week 5 he's got Arsenal at home, but I would say that if you're looking sort of long term, I think De Bruyne could be a good pick. I'm not going to lie. I really do, because after Arsenal at home, it's Newcastle away, and I actually don't think it's as hard as a fixture as it used to be, given the fact that Newcastle have looked pretty poor defensively so far this season. And then after Newcastle in game week 6, from game week 7 all the way to about game week 12, Manchester City have some great fixtures. They got Fulham at home, Wolves away, Southampton at home, Bournemouth away, Brighton away. So some really good long-term fixtures for Manchester City. So that's why I think De Bruyne could be a good option to sort of put in your team now, because you get the first 2 good fixtures against West Ham and Brentford, and then you also get the good fixtures that he has long term. So Kevin De Bruyne could be a good differential in my opinion, and he's got good minutes. That's another thing that I want to point out, guys. He got 90 minutes against Chelsea, 89 minutes against Ipswich. So if he continues to get good minutes, then I think he's a fantastic option. So I quickly wanted to give my opinion on some other Manchester City options that you may be considering for game week 3, and we'll start off by talking about Phil Foden. I think he's a good long-term option, but for now I would avoid picking him. The reason why that is because I actually don't see Phil Foden getting good minutes. I mean, will he even start the next game? I couldn't tell you. I really don't know. Remember, guys, Phil Foden was with England in the Euros, and then so as a result he didn't get much of a pre-season. So against Chelsea he didn't start. Now I know he came on as a sub at half time because Savinho did get injured, but then in game weeks 2 he didn't play any minutes at all, and that was because he was actually sick. But the point I'm trying to make is that Phil Foden is just simply not playing enough football. He's not really had enough of a pre-season, and he's not been playing Premier League games. He's not played enough Premier League games in the first 2 game weeks. So I don't think Phil Foden is a good pick because I don't think he gets good minutes, and I don't even know if he's going to start. So for now I would avoid picking Phil Foden, but he's definitely someone I would consider from game week 6 onwards. But for now I would say he's an avoid because I think he's just a minute's risk, and that's just my opinion. You might disagree, but yeah, like I said, it's just my opinion. But the next player I want to give my opinion on is actually Savinho. I think he could be a really good differential. He reminds me of Riyad Mahrez so much. He's such a quality player, and he has definitely passed the eye test for me. A joy to watch, a really good dribbler, a good 1v1 player as well. He likes to take on his man, but the difference between Savinho and Jeremy Doku, guys, is the end product. That's the difference for me. Of course, Doku, as you can see, I've listed Doku as an avoid. Doku's a good 1v1 player as well, but for me, his crossing, his finishing is just really poor. For me, his end product isn't consistent enough. But the difference with Savinho is that for me on the eye test, he actually has really good end product. His crossing is much better than Doku, and his finishing is much better than Doku. I watched his highlights as well from the time he was playing at Girona, and I could also see that his finishing is a lot better and more consistent than Jeremy Doku. Now, of course, highlights do not tell the full story, but so far what I've watched from Man City live in the Chelsea game and against Ipswich as well, I think, yeah, Savinho's end product is really good, and that's why I do believe he will be a good pick. Now, there is the argument to be made. Will Savinho be a consistent starter? Well, I think yes, especially for the next 2. I mean, he started against Chelsea, he started against Ipswich, and he's actually played well. So why would he not start against West Ham and against Brentford? Now, of course, it's Pep Guardiola we're dealing with. It's so hard to predict his lineups, but I will say after when Champions League comes into play, then I can sort of understand the point about him being a minutes risk, because when there's midweek games, I wouldn't be surprised if Savinho is rotated. But as a short-term punt, as a short-term differential for game weeks 3 and 4, I think Savinho could be a pretty decent pick, I'm not gonna lie. And then of course you guys can see I've actually put Jeremy Doku as an avoid. That's just purely because I think at the same price Savinho is the better option, so I would avoid going for Jeremy Doku. And like I said, I just think his end product isn't that great. He's a really fun player to watch on the eye, really exciting player, a good 1v1 player, but he lacks that clinical edge. He does lack that clinical edge, and for me that's the reason why I don't think he's a good FPL option. So for me, I would avoid Jeremy Doku. But that's going to be it for today's video, guys. I hope you did enjoy the video, and if you did, smash a big thumbs up on the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and guys, I will catch you in the next one. But until then, I'm out. Peace.